My husband John had an office romance, so I immediately reported him. That afternoon, John faced salary deductions, demotion, a public apology before the board, and permanent documentation in company records becoming the talk of the corporation. I flicked his written apology with my fingernail. John, you poor unfortunate soul. Career setbacks, public humiliation, and ironclad evidence of marital misconduct in my possession. Could anyone be more pitiful than him? Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. When I caught John kissing his secretary in the office, I reported him without hesitation. Cheating men deserve no sympathy. I had his belongings packed and thrown out that same night, changing all the locks for good measure. As for that secretary who'd always given me attitude under John's protection with his downfall, why should I show mercy? I called the HR manager directly, give her the choice between resignation or termination. Resignation allows a graceful exit while termination permanently records the reason in her employment file. Even fools know which to pick. Locked out of our home, John raged over the phone. Evelyn, you're the most vicious woman I've ever met. I want a divorce. Divorce? Oh dear me. I sniffled dramatically into the receiver. You'd better mean that. Whoever backs out is a coward. We met at the law firm, having built our fortune together since youth. Untangling shared assets required multiple attorneys. John glared daggers at me, the self-made CEO accustomed to being addressed ASMR. Wilson, respected by the board for his money-making prowess. Yesterday's public humiliation had stripped him bare. No negotiations. Just divide the assets. He tilted his chin arrogantly, looking down his nose at me. When John froze in shock, I continued innocently, what? You thought I'd fight to keep you? Don't flatter yourself. Evelyn, he roared, chest heaving as he turned his fury toward the lawyers. Hurry up. I can't stand this woman bearing my wife's title another second. As his attorney opened their folder, I cut in first. I want 70% liquid assets, no stocks, funds, cars, or your company shares. Cash only. If insufficient, properties will do. Before the lawyer could respond, John sneered, Evelyn, have you lost your mind? After what you did? How dare you demand 70% after reporting me to the board? Why wouldn't I? I blinked earnestly. Didn't I report your workplace affair? That's precisely why I deserve compensation. John's face purpled as his attorney intervened. Ms. Peters, where's your evidence? Surveillance without consent holds no legal weight. Leak it and we'll sue for invasion of privacy. John regained composure, glaring icily. Hear that, Evelyn? Study law before making empty threats. But I out-serious them both, gentlemen. I'm law-abiding. Why would I film anyone? The security cameras did that. John's complexion flared crimson again. Evelyn, who says I lack evidence? I produced crumpled documents from my bag. Would the board's official reprimand with his signature count as valid proof? Both men palmed. I maintained earnest eye contact. The picture of sincerity. That conference room kiss? Mere prelude. Without concrete evidence, would the board have forced their golden goose to publicly apologize? Those pricey meeting room cameras record 24 hours a day, forgotten until passion overcomes caution. Armed with footage, I'd given the board an ultimatum: internal discipline or media circus. While official recordings couldn't leak, anonymous tips work wonders. For a figure like John, tabloids would fabricate entire backstories from whispers alone. With IPO preparations underway, the board chose damage control. But why would I stir such trouble without cause? As a shareholder, I naturally received the investigation report. The damning document bore John's signature, admitting inappropriate workplace conduct. He breathed like an enraged bull, but fear never stopped me before. Cheaters deserve exposure. Why wait for Chinese New Year? Caught off guard by concrete evidence. John and his lawyer huddled in frantic whispers while I stifled yawns. What's there to discuss? Even if we talk it out. Can John erase all the disgusting things he's done? As long as I have that confession letter in my possession. His marital misconduct is solidly proven. I'm in the right here, why should I back down? When they returned later, the lawyer announced, Evelyn, John is willing to show consideration given your 12-year marriage. He agrees to a 60-40 asset split in your favor. I nearly choked. Were we haggling over vegetables at the market? I stood up abruptly. We're done here. Let the court decide. Counselor, draft the lawsuit immediately. My lawyer finally sprang to life, flipping open his laptop with renewed purpose. Enough! John roared. Oh, please. After all these years married, didn't I know him? His precious reputation meant more than life itself. The mighty John getting sued for divorce over infidelity, with his own written confession as the smoking gun? The public humiliation would destroy him faster than any blade. His face turned beet red as he ground out. Fine. 70-30 split. I wagged my finger. No. 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 That was last offer. Now it's 80-20. Evelyn! He bellowed. I rolled my eyes. Having built our empire side by side, I'd negotiated with hundreds of suppliers. Why did he act so shocked when I played hardball? Pathetic. Changed your mind? Let's just go to court then. Counselor, how's that lawsuit coming? Almost done. Just polishing the wording. My lawyer's efficiency deserved a bonus. Seeing me ready to march to the courthouse, John hissed through clenched teeth. 80-20. No court. Cash and real estate only, no stocks. Funds. Cars. Or company shares. I added. Veins bulging. He nodded. Deal. I snapped my fingers. Bring the contract. My lawyer scurried over with the paperwork. As he arranged documents, I couldn't resist needling John. Should have agreed earlier. Wasted my whole afternoon, could have had tea with Mrs. Chen instead. He ignored me until reviewing the contract. Then glared. You planned this all along. The printed 80-20 split proved my preparation. Oops. Guessed you'd be petty. I shrugged. Saved paper though. Eco-friendly citizen. Remember? At the civil office. Our divorce finalized in 15 minutes. Outside. We turned opposite ways without glances, him resenting my ruthlessness. Me disgusted by his filth. 1 month later. My divorce papers arrived as my new athletic wear store launched, double celebration. We had lion dancers. Flash mobs. Every tradition to purge bad juju. During our fitness fashion show, tanned models showcasing yoga pants and tank tops electrified the crowd. Calculating potential profits. I suddenly dodged a wild slap. Mary stumbled past. Nearly face planting. Evelyn! How dare you steal my son's money? Auntie Mary! I beamed. Here to work out? Might I suggest a neurologist first? Your balance seems off. You shameless leech! She shrieked. John supported you for 8 years. Supported? I blinked innocently. He vowed to forfeit everything if he cheated. I left him 20%, isn't that merciful? Leaning closer, I whispered, unless you want me to make him honor his oath completely. True to form. The indestructible cockroach charged again. Good thing my store employed muscular trainers who intercepted her mid-lunge. When Mary saw the 2 young men blocking my path with their bulging pectorals and biceps, she realized physical confrontation was futile. Changing tactics. She viciously kicked over the cartoon statue in front of my store. Amidst the shattering crystal, she plopped down wailing, "Woe is me. My son married this shameless hussy. 8 years we supported her, and she repays us by draining my boy's savings." Holy smokes. This was prime tabloid material. The drama could have trended for weeks. Mid-wail. Mary abruptly silenced herself. Evelyn. You conniving little witch. Karma's coming for you. She scrambled up with turbocharged speed, fleeing faster than an Olympic sprinter. I shook my head in disbelief. Her cerebellar ataxia symptoms vanished quicker than free samples at Costco. 1 minute she's stumbling. Next she's breaking land speed records. As the commotion ended, customers flooded into my boutique. My lawyer friend gave an approving nod. Perfect timing. MS. Peters. Didn't lose a single sale. While directing cleanup crews, I shrugged modestly. Beginner's luck. That maneuver was pure genius. He grinned. Taught that old bat a proper lesson. I feigned shock. I'd never disrespect elders. Unless, my expression hardened as I dialed 911. Officer? I need to report felony vandalism. At the police station, John and I sat across from 2 officers. Work this out yourselves first. They suggested. Why should her age matter? I countered. Does senior citizenship grant destruction rights? John's jaw tightened. She's my mother. Exactly why you're footing the bill. I replied, wondering if our divorce had somehow lowered his IQ. John glared. It was an accident. You're dragging my mom to court over cheap glassware? Turning to the officers, I asked, the surveillance footage clearly shows her intentional kick. Correct? The officer confirmed. Mary's willful property damage is evident. That's why you're here. John. John redirected his fury at me. How much for this junk? I'll pay. It's crystal. I corrected sharply. 20 million. His eyes bulged. Are you insane? That's more than solid gold. Solid Brazilian quartz actually. I clarified, sliding over an invoice. Handcrafted by Master Giovanni. Last of his legacy pieces. Art valuation's always subjective. Remember when that chimpanzee's finger painting sold for millions? John crumpled the invoice. Hissing through clenched teeth, you left 20 million artwork on the sidewalk? My property. My rules. I shrugged. Though honestly, who expects geriatric roundhouse kicks? The officer interjected, 20 million qualifies as grand larceny vandalism. Given the defendant's ignorance of the artwork's value and your prior relationship, we recommend settlement. Think carefully. Another officer advised John. Do you want your mother incarcerated at her age? John's face purpled. I don't have that kind of cash. Credible Claim ID already claimed 80% in our divorce. Not my problem. I stood to leave. Wait! John growled. I'll pay. Process the settlement. Half turning, I delivered my ultimatum, wire transfer first. Then we talk. He's not even anyone to me. Why should I put up with him? John's eyes were bloodshot, glaring at me like he wanted to devour me whole. After a solid 10 seconds, he stormed out to make a call. Half an hour later, $20 million hit my account. I promptly completed the criminal reconciliation paperwork. When the police released Mary from temporary custody, the old woman looked like she'd aged a decade in those few hours. She collapsed sobbing into John's arms the moment she emerged, wailing loud enough to wake the dead. John wore that painfully concerned expression of his. Having been family once, I figured I should offer some comfort. Aunt Mary, I said earnestly, at your age, you really shouldn't let your temper get the best of you. Think twice next time. Impulse is the devil's plaything. Oddly enough, my well-meant advice only made her cry louder. TSK. Senility must be setting in, can't even tell good intentions from bad anymore. With those millions secured, I immediately jetted off for some out-of-state fun. That Godolphin statue, massive. Overpriced. space-hogging eyesore, had been my biggest buyer's remorse since catching John's cringeworthy office antics drove me to impulse buy the monstrosity. Finding no suckers to offload it onto. Getting John to repurchase it at original price? Pure satisfaction. Whoever causes impulsive spending should handle the cleanup, that's what I call perfect closure. Returning home. Another familiar face awaited at my gym. I nearly rubbed my eyes seeing Mr. Wilson, the king of double standards himself. This was the man who praised my business acumen when John was building his company, then accused me of impropriety for parading myself in public after we succeeded. 4 months. The Wilsons nagged about men handling outside a fair sand, poor John coming home to cold meals. Hello? I was an executive too. Our live-in chef prepared 6-course meals daily. Were they blind? But watching John torn between me and his parents, I relented. Quit my executive position, kept the shares, and opened a boutique. On opening day, I hosted a fashion show with leggy male models right when Mary stormed the stage, shrieking about me flaunting myself and corrupt influences. My partner's shocked pity still burns, that mix of outrage and secondhand embarrassment for my in-law situation. I withdrew partnership the next day under Mary's triumphant glare. Every career attempt after met similar sabotage until I became another society wife sipping tea with corporate spouses. Only then did Mary stop, smugly declaring the's a woman's proper place. Mary's tactics? All orchestrated by Mr. Wilson. Once I became a housewife, he stopped acknowledging my existence, the same man who'd once praised my business savvy. So imagine my surprise seeing this pompous relic in my gym. Hey old man. Here to work out? I beamed customer service bright. Mr. Wilson's face froze mid-script. Old man? He sputtered. This former village school teacher, all faux scholar airs with his calligraphy brushes and tea sets, always demanded respectful Mr. Professor. Everyone humored him for John's sake. At your age, I explained cheerfully. And me being so respectful of elders. Old man fits perfectly. Leaning conspiratorially, I added, honestly. You're past gym age. Save your money, go square dancing instead. Each old man made his face darken, suggesting the plebeian dancing he despised. His eye twitched violently, but he choked out. Evelyn. A woman has no use for company shares. Transfer yours to John. See? Mr. Wilson's always been the strategist behind Mary's fireworks. Even livid, he remembered his mission. Funny you mention that. I smiled. I was just thinking of dumping those shares. His expression softened marginally, mistaking compliance for submission. Sensible girl. I'll have John contact you. If only he knew my compliance came with nuclear-grade fine print. The old man walked away with his hands behind his back. I immediately texted the company's largest shareholders, shares available for purchase. First come, first served. By the time John got wind of this, I'd already negotiated with several investors. He stormed into my office. Evelyn, what's your game? I blinked innocently. Selling shares. What else? You promised my father you'd transfer them to me for free. His face flushed crimson. Why are you contacting others? I stared at him like he'd grown horns. John, have you lost your mind? I never said anything about giving you shares. Free? Are you having some malnourishment-induced delusions? Leaning forward, I adopted a concerned tone. Seriously. If money's tight, I'll pay for your psychiatric evaluation. Consider it my parting gift after our marriage. Veins bulged at his temples as 5 shareholders called me within 20 minutes. Finally, he ground out, I'll buy them. My smile turned radiant. Why didn't you say so earlier? Let's discuss pricing. With the IPO looming, bidding wars escalated. My shares eventually fetched 7 figures, precisely matching downtown Manhattan penthouse prices. John, having poured his soul into building this company from seed round to pre-IPO, had no choice but to meet my price. During the wire transfer, he gripped the check like it pained him. Was this necessary? Business is business. I plucked the check from his fingers, waving it teasingly. Next time, keep your father's lectures to yourself. My lawyer later discovered he'd liquidated Jessica's secretly held property marital assets he'd concealed during our divorce. Leaving the office, I paused at the elevator. Oh, John, do thank your father for me. Without his meddling, you'd never have paid premium prices. That afternoon, I sipped martinis with Mrs. Chin and other corporate wives, casually mentioning how modern art investments outperformed volatile tech stocks. My gym equipment business now thrived without oversight, while the Wilsons, well, let's just say their holiday cards stopped arriving that year. My father-in-law from the Wilson family manipulated me into staying unemployed, confining me to the socialite circuit of spa days and shopping sprees. But idle hands were never my style. If I couldn't earn money, I'd spend it with purpose. I rallied the ladies into forming the Glamour and Grace Collective, a charity foundation as elegant as its name suggested. Our mission? Funding scholarships and aiding underdeveloped regions, while generously donating during crises. The perfect blend of philanthropy and tax write-offs for our husbands' corporations. John and his business partners couldn't have been more pleased with our pet project. Though divorced from John now, I still helmed the foundation. Our monthly meetings at Mrs. Chen's exclusive club followed the usual script, more champagne gossip than actual business. New aspirants always appeared during cocktail hour, and this gathering proved no exception. Arriving late after private discussions with Mrs. Chen, I entered the dining room to catch new recruits clustering like nervous sparrows. One piping voice carried over the crystal clinks, "Jessica, is it true you're renting with John now?" The name clicked instantly. Jessica Brown, John's former secretary from those incriminating surveillance videos. My memory retained less of her face than her scandalous lack of clothing during their meetings. Even fully dressed now, she might as well have been nude. Jessica's initial irritation transformed into theatrical bravado at my approach. We sold our home to support John's company through rough patches, she announced like a wartime heroine. Once Wilson Group goes public, everything will be restored. True partners weather storms together. The sycophants chorused admiration. How selfless. John's so fortunate. Jessica's gaze locked on me, her voice dripping saccharine venom. Some lack basic decency, draining their exes dry during divorces. I'd never abandon John at his lowest. The room stilled. Several women edged backward while others glared my way. Without the Wilson name, my foundation leadership suddenly seemed illegitimate in their eyes. Mrs. Chen's crystal goblet shattered at Jessica's feet. Bullshit. The steel magnate's wife snapped. A recent grad affording million-dollar homes? Who really paid for that villa? Since when do mistresses brag about hiding marital assets publicly? Jessica blanched as Mrs. Chin summoned security. Print their photos for the lobby. Ban these homewreckers from my properties. The disgraced group scrambled, too stunned to protest their expulsion. Pathetic. Mrs. Chin scoffed, surveying the remaining members, all respectable wives who'd earned their positions. I chuckled, leaning against my human truth cannon. Darling, you're my spirit animal. Later, sober despite the Champagne River, I called my attorney. Release those documents to the board. Mrs. Chen's theatrics were satisfying, but revenge tastes sweetest when self-served. John's furious call came days later during my aromatherapy soak. Evelyn, you filed the complaint. I sank deeper into rose-scented bubbles, feigning confusion. Complaint? Whatever do you mean, John? The SEC investigation into his financial discrepancies would speak for itself. It took me a few seconds to process before I snapped back to reality. Excitement bubbling up. What are you talking about? That major supplier company's legal representative being your secretary's mother? John roared through the phone. Evelyn. So it was you. Yep. Sure was. I cheerfully admitted. Pretty slick move. Huh? John's tech empire relied on numerous suppliers. And his devotion to Jessica knew no bounds. 2 years ago, when she was still an intern, he'd helped establish a shell company under Jessica's mother's name to handle their most lucrative contracts. The Browns had zero business experience, hell, not even a lemonade stand in 3 generations. Their companion simply acted as middlemen subcontracting work while charging exorbitant fees. John rubber-stamped every invoice without scrutiny, bamboozling the board with inflated market rates. As long as profits stayed strong, nobody questioned the arrangement. My suspicions arose when he casually produced $2 million for that crystal statue within 30 minutes. After leaving the police station that day, I had my lawyers dig deeper. Turns out John's recent cash crunch made him greedy. Jessica's mom's company had started skimming enough to impact overall profits. Normally the board might overlook minor embezzlement. But during IPO preparations, they forced him to cough up every penny. Through the receiver, I could hear John's labored breathing like an enraged bull. Yet true to the Wilson family's cold-blooded legacy, he steadied his voice. Evelyn, I've always treated you fairly. Why this betrayal? Fair? Every shred of my current standing came from clawing my way up. One moment of weakness and I'd be homeless. Evelyn! He bellowed again. I mockingly clutched my chest, taking a fortifying sip of 100 grand Bordeaux. After several tense seconds, John hissed. You'll regret this. He made good on that threat during New Age Tech's IPO roadshow, a glittering press conference followed by an investor gala. As a former stakeholder, I received an invitation. The venue buzzed with shareholders glowing greener than NASDAQ tickers. Their pitying glances practically screaming "Shall we kept your stock? Dumbass." John swaggered over, chin tilted at that infuriating 45-degree angle. Regrets yet, Evelyn? He'd clearly rehearsed this moment. Our height difference forced me to crane my neck, the surrounding crowd pretending not to eavesdrop. The silence shattered when I innocently remarked, John, you've got nose hair sticking out. The room erupted. John's face purpled before storming off. Dignity in tatters. I barely had time to enjoy the cleaner air before being accosted by a walking Sephora explosion batting cartoonish lashes. Thank you for discarding such an amazing man, simpered the human makeup palette. Since you didn't appreciate John, I'll happily enjoy the blessings you threw away. I blinked. Do I know you? Her expression cycled through rage, humiliation, and finally screeched. Stop pretending. John belongs to me now, Jessica. Recognition dawned. Oh, you're the pork belly from the security footage. Jessica's triumphant smirk froze mid-preen. The crowd's renewed snickers echoed through the marble halls as her cosmetic mask began crackling with fury. The crowd lingering for the drama hadn't dispersed. Following John's nasal hair incident, another round of uproarious laughter erupted. Jessica let out a squeal, covering her face with both hands as she fled the scene. I stared at her retreating figure in disbelief. What's wrong with her? Doesn't she know basic manners? I was in the middle of apologizing. Who runs away during someone's apology? Utterly uncivilized. As the gala concluded, nasal hair John and pork belly Jessica became the new social media sensations, completely overshadowing the IPO documents. Not surprising, really, companies go public every day. But how often do you get juicy gossip about nasal hair mishaps and pork belly comparisons among the elite? Days passed. While John's company IPO remained months away, his wedding date with Jessica had already been set. This second marriage parade, complete with his cheating scandal, was being marketed as some grand love story. Personally, I couldn't care less. I'd long stopped giving him any attention, but he kept forcing himself into my orbit. At the annual Gather and Excel Foundation charity gala, where industry leaders gathered to donate and network, John arrived with Jessica in tow. He made a show of bidding $20 million for a diamond necklace, theatrically clasping it around her neck while declaring, For my one true love. Every eye in the ballroom turned to me. The whole world knew how I'd supported John from his penniless days to his current wealth. This public display was essentially a slap across my face. Mrs. Chin nearly stormed the stage. I gripped her arm tightly. Evelyn, where's your self-respect? How can you tolerate this? I didn't look up from checking the bid details. Why be angry? We just sold him cubic zirconia for 20 mil. Cubic. Mrs. Chin gaped. I nodded. Planted 3 decoy bidders just to drive up the price. Had written pages of tactics. Mrs. Chin looked torn between amusement and disbelief. What if he notices and cries fraud? Now I gave her my full attention. This is a charity auction. Backing out would torpedo his credibility. Let him try, I'll sue him into next century. Mrs. Chin dissolved into laughter so violent she clutched her sides. Wheezing. Serves them right. Trash like that only deserves knockoffs. While Mrs. Chin left reassured. Others kept shooting me pitying glances during the post-event farewells. I ignored them all. John made his grand exit last, cornering me after sending Jessica ahead. Regretting your choices yet, Evelyn? He sneered. I'm giving Jessica the grand wedding and devotion you never got. I studied him carefully. Should I call a neurologist? Stop deflecting, he roared before storming out. The moment he left, I dialed a different number. Initiate phase 2. Flood all channels, prioritize market share over margins. Use marketing subsidies, no. Funding isn't an issue. I'll cover it. The next morning, a revolutionary new product exploded onto the market, identical application scenarios as John's flagship offering but superior in performance and user-friendliness. Priced 1/3 lower. Within weeks, it captured half the market. John's company panicked. Slashing prices only for our product to iterate faster, reduce production costs, and undercut them further. Their brand became synonymous with cheapness overnight. Longtime clients kept buying out of habit. But the downward spiral was obvious to anyone paying attention. IPO dates kept getting postponed as investors grew skittish. Some even inquired about share buybacks. The collapse came faster than anyone anticipated. Which explains why I found myself meeting a haggard John at some nondescript cave weeks later. The man who once radiated power now looked every bit his age. The stress-etching lines where wealth and status used to smooth them away. John Wilson had been burning the midnight oil for days. When he first saw me, his voice was hoarse as he demanded, "It was you!" I nodded. The capital behind that competing product was indeed mine. Why? John couldn't contain his emotions. His voice cracking. Evelyn, are you hellbent on destroying me? I frowned and rapped twice on the table. John pressed trembling hands to his temples. Exhaustion seeping through his words. Evelyn, I was wrong. I messed up. But take it out on me. Not the company. Let my IPO go through, please. I sipped my coffee. The porcelain clinking. You overestimate your importance. John. His bloodshot eyes locked on mine. Stop pretending. This is revenge. Plain and simple. Suddenly, he looked alien to me. I'd fallen for the ambitious visionary who saw endless possibilities. Yet here sat a man fossilized in complacency. My voice remained steady. When mobile POS terminals emerged, CEOs swore they'd dominate the 21st century. Then QR codes happened. Know what a paradigm shift looks like? That's it. We're not even in the same arena, just sharing the battlefield. When my play unfolds, yours becomes obsolete overnight. The spoon clinked rhythmically against my cup. Why do these shifts occur, John? Because some keep climbing dimensions, 3, 4, 10. Others, I let the implication hang. You stopped growing. Your vision, drive, mentality, they plateaued years ago. I stayed because I loved the explorer you were. I kept hoping, my throat tightened. That giving you center stage might reignite that spark. The Jessica incident? My laugh held no mirth. I can't even recall if it was Jessica or some other J name. Just pale flesh and security footage. You both became irrelevant the moment you betrayed me. Leaning forward, I watched hope flicker in his eyes before extinguishing. This meeting? A final test. I wanted to hear what the boy I loved, the one who charged at life, might say. But you. The coffee swirled like liquid obsidian. My venture's the QR code, tomorrow's currency. Yours? A clunky POS system headed for museums. No amount of begging changes that trajectory. At best. I gave Fate's wheel a nudge. His face drained of color. No doubt recalling the charity gala where he'd publicly humiliated me. Revenge needs escalation to qualify. I mused. You should have known better than to let your circus monkeys near my territory. As he crumpled like withered leaves. I left exact change at the counter. The shell of John, once my compass star, didn't merit a backward glance. The aftermath unfolded predictably, shareholders circling. Jessica demanding alimony. Mary hospitalized from stress. John's father fracturing his hip delivering hospital meals. Irrelevant epilogues. All. The real ending wrote itself years earlier, when John started strutting like a preening peacock. Nasal hairs quivering with every pompous declaration. The mistress? The family drama? Mere symptoms. I could have fixed it all. For the right man. But the boy who'd raced toward horizons? He'd vanished long before the security chief, Mrs. Chen's reformed nephew who'd earned his GED while working nights, first spotted suspicious movements on surveillance monitors. That young man's quiet diligence had given me the evidence. The closure. And ultimately, the leverage. As for John's current theatrics, his lawyer could keep the divorce papers. I'd already moved 3 dimensions beyond. I've always believed in sincerity and kindness. Treating others with genuine openness. I plant seeds of goodwill without demanding specific outcomes. Even toward John. I've never sought confrontation. And indeed, those I've shown kindness return it tenfold. The universe is fair. Shortly after hanging up, the phone rang again. This time it was Mrs. Chen. Her laughter booming through the receiver. Evelyn. This deal just made your sister a fortune. My husband's practically drooling over the profit margins from my project. I smiled. A venture of that scale required massive capital, far beyond what I could shoulder alone. Thankfully, I'd spent years cultivating trust through careful stewardship. My circle of brilliant, like-minded women and friends had rallied behind my vision. Who says women can't achieve greatness when we unite? You've always had sharp instincts. I replied. My sharpest instinct was betting on you. Her excitement crackled through the line. Next project? Just name the number, I'll wire it before you finish the sentence. Now get over here. The victory party's dull without its star. On my way. I stepped forward. Sunlight fracturing into liquid gold across my skin. I don't need borrowed light. I glow. The end.